On my 65th birthday, I died of overwork. My husband, Gu Chongqing, was busy remarrying his first love and couldn't come to see me off for the last time. My son was eager to please his biological mother and blamed me for picking him up in the snow all those years ago. The grand wedding made everyone envy the twilight love of the two old professors, and they thought the original wife was vulgar. In the end, no one was willing to pay for my burial. Only a thin and tall man silently took out all his savings to buy me the best gravestone. He was still wearing the red string bracelet I gave him all those years ago. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the age of 17, this time, between romantic charm and honest simplicity. I chose the latter. Lying in the hospital bed, I could clearly feel that my life was coming to an end. The doctor said that my illness was caused by excessive fatigue over the past few decades. I had devoted myself wholeheartedly to my family, and it had worn out my body, but I didn't regret it. Although I, Zhao Tsuei, came from a rural area and didn't have much education or academic qualifications, compared with women in the city who had read a lot of books, I was also rarely capable. In that era, I saved money bit by farming, slaughtering pigs, carrying cement, and picking up garbage. I lived frugally to support my husband, Gu Chongqing, in his studies. And I also managed to make connections everywhere to arrange a job for him. I helped him rise from a down-and-out educated youth in the countryside who had lost both parents and had nothing to a decent and well-known old professor at a prestigious university now. Gu Chongqing was not only humble but also very affectionate towards his wife. Everyone envied me for my good fortune and my sharp eye for choosing a man, even the son I picked up in the snow. Now I had raised him from infancy to the point where he had started a family and a career. He wasn't particularly outstanding, but he was well known for his filial piety and thoughtfulness. Looking back, the hardships I had endured in my life seemed worthwhile, and I hadn't lived in vain. I stubbornly held on to my last breath, just wanting to wait for my husband, Gu Chongqing, and my son, Gu Nianyu, to see them one last time and have them send me off. I didn't know why they hadn't come yet. Maybe there was a traffic jam on the way. I had just bought the car that Nianyu had been longing for. He was probably driving very carefully, so he was a bit late, or maybe Chongqing had encountered an urgent matter at work. In recent years, he had become very busy and was always on business trips abroad. He was already so old, and the school didn't seem to care about him. Anyway, they must have been held up by something. In the past, I would have waited patiently without making a sound. But now I couldn't hold on for much longer. I struggled to look at the nurse beside me. She comforted me softly. "Grandma Zhao, I'll help you urge them again." She first called Chongqing. After a long busy tone, there was no answer. She called again, and still, no one answered. Then she called Nianyu's phone. In less than 2 seconds, it was hung up. I was so anxious that I coughed and couldn't catch my breath. The little nurse was also anxious. What on earth are they busy with? One after another. It's already this time. No, I have to call again. This time, fortunately, the call got through. She let out a sigh of relief and turned on the speakerphone. "Sir, may I ask when you and your father will arrive? Your mother, Grandma Zhao. She may not be able to hold on for much longer." I looked at the other end of the phone expectantly, but the next second, the person on the other side spoke ruthlessly and impatiently. "Why hasn't she died yet? Also, she's not my mother. How can a rural bumpkin like her be worthy? My real mother is Xia Wanyu, the famous Professor Xia who returned from studying abroad. I'm currently attending the century wedding of my real mother and my real father. Don't bother us anymore. Can you afford to delay the auspicious time? As for that old hag who has shamelessly occupied my mother's position for decades, she should be sensible and close her eyes and die quickly." After saying that, he hung up coldly without a trace of nostalgia. The little nurse was shocked and stood there speechless. My head was buzzing. It was like countless thunderbolts were crashing down one after another. Was this still my son? My son, Gu Nianyu, was well known for his filial piety. How could he say such things? Also, wasn't he an orphan I picked up in the snow? How could he be the son of Xia Wanyu? How could he be the son of my husband, Gu Chongqing, and Xia Wanyu? Weren't they just simple senior and junior fellow students? What century wedding? My husband was going to marry someone else on the day I was about to die. I simply couldn't understand and couldn't believe it. Anger and doubt filled my chest. My chest rose and fell rapidly, my whole body kept shaking, and my muscles spasmed uncontrollably. I opened my eyes wide. Just like that, amidst the little nurse's exclamation, my breath suddenly stopped, and I died with my eyes open, too. Perhaps it was because of my deep resentment. after I died, my soul floated in the air. And I saw many scenes that subverted my perception, the road that I had walked countless times when picking up garbage during my lifetime. At this moment, a red carpet extended, and there was a hubbub of gongs and drums. There were lion dancers leading the way in front, and a 10-mile red dowry at the end. The onlookers gathered in groups, and my husband, the man I had loved all my life, Gu Chongqing, was wearing a red robe and riding a horse. His smile was as shy as when he was a teenager. He greeted the passers-by with a bow and recited a poem in high spirits. For 50 years, we have been separated like a pair of swallows. It's hard to write the love song in the brocade letter. Today, I marry my beloved, and I'm happy to tell the whole world. Behind him was an exquisite and eye-catching 8-person sedan chair. Xia Wanyu sat in the sedan chair, wearing a phoenix crown and a wedding dress, with a beautiful face. The magnificent procession attracted everyone's attention. What a grand Chinese-style century wedding. It was so imposing that it was blinding. When I married him, he said that the conditions were temporarily difficult, and he didn't have the ability to give me much. After he achieved something in his studies, he would make up for me with a grand wedding. I believed him and didn't ask for any betrothal gifts. I wholeheartedly supported his studies with my life. Later, when there were better conditions, he said that as a professor and at his age, having a wedding would not only make people laugh but also affect his work. I believed him again and comforted myself that life was for myself, and what was the use of so much grandeur? What's more, now that the family was full of children and grandchildren, it was better to save some money. Even after retirement, I still went out to pick up garbage with my retirement salary, just to save some money for them. But now, he didn't have so many excuses anymore, and he no longer said that spending money was wasteful. Looking at this scene, the passers-by all sighed. I really envy the beautiful love of the older generation, Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu. These names are just like the heroines in novels. I said why Zhao Cuizue was not worthy of Professor Gu. It turns out that she was a shameless mistress who took the position and separated them alive. The name Zhao Cuizue is really extremely rustic. She has done all kinds of bad things in her life. Since she couldn't have children herself, she stole Ms. Xia's child to raise. I was so angry that I cursed, but no one paid attention to me. Later, they changed to cars. My son, Gu Nianyu, whom I regarded as my own, attentively helped Xia Wanyu by the hand and helped her into the BMW car that I had bought with my money. Come on, Mom, take it slow. Xia Wanyu didn't move and frowned slightly. I don't want to ride in a car that a country bumpkin has ridden in. Gu Nianyu immediately added, Mom, don't worry, this car is clean, that old hag hasn't touched it. Only then did Xia Wanyu's frown relax, and she got into the car. I suddenly realized, no wonder he never wanted to take me for a drive in the car after buying it and always used the excuse that his driving skills were not good and he was concerned about my safety to prevaricate me. It turned out that my son thought I was dirty. The motorcade drove all the way until it stopped in front of a brand new Chinese-style single-family villa. Gu Chongqing held Xia Wanyu's hand and got out of the car. Madam, as you said, I didn't let her know about this place. And I didn't even let her come in half a step. It turned out that he had secretly bought a wedding house without telling me. My husband also thought I was dirty. Among the full house of guests, they raised their glasses and clinked them. At this time, the hospital called again to inform the family that I had died and asked them to come and sign for the burial. My son, Gu Nianyu, said, still helped collect her body. Heh. I'm not blaming her for privately picking me up in the snow and making me separate from my real mother for so many years. That's already very kind of me. My husband, Gu Chongqing, said, this is not my obligation. I have never regarded her as my wife. In my heart, there is only Wanyu. Such a vulgar person is not worthy of me collecting her body. He turned around and patted Xia Wanyu's hand, praising her. You're so smart. You made me lie to her that she couldn't have children, otherwise. How could she take care of our son wholeheartedly like a nanny? Xia Wanyu raised the corners of her lips, looking proud. I laughed until tears came out. Xia Wanyu, for so many years, because of Gu Chongqing, I had always taken care of you as if you were my own sister, worried that you would have difficulties alone abroad. I not only acquiesced in Gu Chongqing sending you money but also subsidized you from time to time myself. I gave my heart and soul to each of you. And how did you treat me? You made a fool of me. The family that I had worked hard for all my life turned out to be false. My husband belonged to someone else, and so did my child. My whole life was a huge joke. No one remembered that today was my birthday, even no one was willing to pity me and collect my body. My Memorial Day was their wedding day. How ironic. 3. In the hospital. The little nurse was in a state of anxiety. She called all the numbers in my phone book but couldn't find anyone to come and sign. At this time, she suddenly received a strange call. She quickly answered it, treating it as a last resort. I looked at the number and felt that it seemed somewhat familiar. The call was connected. The person on the other end was silent for a moment, looking a bit disbelieving. Suetsue, you're finally willing to answer my call. I didn't mean to disturb you. It's just that I heard that Gu Chongqing is getting married today. Have you already separated, or did he do something to let you down? Don't be afraid. If he dares to let you down, I will definitely teach him a good lesson. Don't think too much. This is what I should do. After all, I'm your brother. He said the last 2 words very softly, as if he was saying it to himself. I finally recognized who it was. Zhao Chuanchuan. The elder brother who had been fostered in my family since he was 10 years old and grew up with me. He was smart, honest, diligent in work, and sensible, and he had always taken good care of me. My parents often joked that we should become a couple, but after meeting Gu Chongqing, I was attracted by his cultural temperament. Compared with Zhao Chuanchuan's honest and dull personality, I preferred the educated youth from the city who could talk about romantic things. So I only regarded Zhao Chuanchuan as my brother and spent all my time around Gu Chongqing. After getting married, Gu Chongqing was afraid of being gossiped about and didn't let me have much contact with Zhao Chuanchuan, saying that after all, he wasn't my real brother. So over the years, we had never been in touch. But what did he mean by saying that I refused to answer his calls? Zhao Chuanchuan talked to himself for a long time, as if he had gotten used to it. By the way, do you still have money to use? Don't be stingy with yourself. Today is your birthday, and I've sent you another sum of money. It's still the same bank card number as before. Don't worry about me either. I'm a big man, and I have nowhere to spend my salary. I remember that you like flowery clothes the most. Buy yourself a couple more to wear. You look good in anything. My nose twitched, and big tears fell. Over the years, only he had still been as good to me as ever. No wonder the number seemed familiar. I had seen it a few times on Gu Chongqing's phone. The bank card number must have been given to him by Gu Chongqing pretending to be me, and it was actually Gu Chongqing's own. Over the years, he had been hiding from me and spending the money that Zhao Chuanchuan sent. As for clothes, he had never bought me a single piece. I hadn't bought myself new clothes for many years either. My husband and son both said that I was old, my figure was out of shape. And it didn't matter what I wore. The little nurse went from being confused at first to feeling sorry. Finally, she couldn't help but interrupt with a choked voice. Excuse me, Grandma Zhao passed away just 2 hours ago. Would you please come and sign so that she can be buried? The other end fell silent immediately. Then came the sound of something heavy falling to the ground. When he spoke again, the man was incoherent. Half an hour later, a simple old man with a walking stick appeared at the door of the ward. He had a tough appearance, was thin and tall, only his right foot was a bit lame. And he walked in a hurry, almost falling. Looking at the person covered with a white cloth on the bed, he suddenly didn't dare to move forward. The hand holding the walking stick shook unsteadily and couldn't stop trembling. He stretched out his hand and carefully lifted a corner of the white cloth. His eyes immediately turned dead. He calmly closed my eyes. Then he lost his strength and knelt on the ground. He murmured to himself, I thought that if I didn't bother you, you would be very happy. I was wrong. I was really wrong. If I hadn't let go back then, would it not have been like this? He covered his chest and actually vomited out a mouthful of blood. It was as dazzling as the worn-out red string bracelet on his wrist. After a long time, he took out the banknotes wrapped in a cloth from his pocket. One by one, as small as 1 yuan, together with the bankbook, he handed them to the little nurse. Please help me buy the best gravestone and bury her, thank you. Only then did I realize the secret that he had never told in his life. Regret, resentment, anger, sadness, and powerlessness, all kinds of emotions intertwined. If I could live my life again, I would definitely not live like this. Suddenly, it went dark in front of my eyes, and I completely lost consciousness. 4. Suetsue. Are you going to give all of your and Brother Chuan's work points today to educated youth Gu and educated youth Xia? The scorching sun shone through the gaps in the straw hat. Burning hot and blinding, yet also incredibly real. I had actually been reborn and returned to the year when I was 17. At that time, Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu had been in the countryside for a year and a half. Unlike other educated youths, they rarely did farm work in the fields. If they didn't work, they wouldn't get work points, and without work points, they naturally couldn't get rations. At first, they relied on the savings and rural subsidy they brought from the city. Later, they met me with a single sentence from Gu Chongqing saying that he wasn't in good health. I took on most of the farm work for him and Xia Wanyu and managed to get my work points transferred to them through some backdoor channels. He complained that the food in the collective canteen wasn't nutritious enough and that he had to fight for it, so I prepared good meals for them every day and invited them to my home to eat. As time went by, they took my efforts for granted and even gradually became more and more demanding. Just like now, the two of them wanted to leave after only working in the fields for 5 minutes. It was clear that they didn't want to exert any effort at all and were counting on me to do all the work, and for the work I couldn't finish, Zhao Chuanchuan would naturally help me. In other words, Zhao Chuanchuan and I were helping them earn work points together. Not far away, a slender and fair boy and girl walked over together. At 18, Gu Chongqing had a delicate and handsome face, exuding an arrogant scholarly air. He handed me a lotus leaf that was almost wilted from the sun and spoke in a refined manner. Tsue, you are the big dewdrop beneath the lotus leaf, and I am the smaller dewdrop on the lotus leaf. I think this lotus leaf suits you very well, so I'm giving it to you. Seeing that I didn't respond, he thought I was once again charmed by his literary romance. A look of complacency, as if everything was under his control, flashed across his eyes. Wanyu and I don't feel well today, so we'll go back first. Please be kind enough to allocate a few more work points to us. Then he added, oh, by the way, we want to eat wild pheasant and wild apples tonight to replenish Wanyu's nutrition. She was exhausted yesterday and needs to recuperate. Remember to tell Brother Chuan to prepare them. The girl beside him was wearing a lotus leaf hat, holding a lotus flower in her hand, revealing a delicate face and a slender figure. Thank you, Tsue. You know, I've never done any work before. Since coming to the countryside, I haven't been in good health. I can't compare to you who grew up in the countryside and are so strong. I really envy you. Certain that I would agree. The two of them turned around and left after giving their instructions. I looked at their intimate backs. With an ambiguous and unclear atmosphere lingering around them, I almost gritted my teeth in anger. How could I not have seen such an obvious relationship in my previous life? I clenched my fists and maintained my rationality. Stop. The two of them turned around, not understanding why. I looked at the tattered things in my hands, smiled, and deliberately showed them around to the surroundings, raising my voice. You people from the city really have smart minds. Exchanging a few work points for a broken leaf, you're even better at doing business than capitalists. Those who know say that you people always uphold the principle that the gift is trifling but the feeling is profound. Those who don't know might think that you're just thick-skinned and love to take advantage of others through speculation. As soon as I finished speaking, several sneers emerged from the crowd working around. Gu Chongqing's face changed slightly, looking a bit embarrassed. Xia Wanyu was also very surprised. Tsue, what do you mean? This lotus leaf was carefully picked by Brother Chongqing for a long time and given to you specially. Oh, so it seems that you have the leisure to go boating on the river and pick flowers, but you don't have the strength to work. On the surface, you are educated youths responding to the call to go to the countryside for re-education, but actually, your thinking is backward, and you're here on vacation and to retire, right? As soon as these words were spoken, they immediately resonated with the crowd and aroused dissatisfaction, especially the other educated youths who had come to the countryside but were working honestly. They had long been frowned upon these two taking shortcuts. I haven't seen educated youth Gu and educated youth Xia in the field several times since they came to the countryside. That's right, we've all gotten tanned, but they're still fair and tender. They don't eat for free in the city anymore. They've changed to relying on women to eat for free in the countryside. While we were working hard, they actually went to a small pond for a tryst. In the past, when I heard such words, I would definitely stand up and refute to defend them immediately. I couldn't stand others saying anything bad about Gu Chongqing, but now, I remained silent, showing my agreement. Seeing that the discussions were getting louder and louder, both Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu's faces turned 2 shades paler. They were both afraid and angry and wanted to defend themselves. Suddenly, I held my forehead and swayed, covering my chest. I had a pained expression. With a whoosh, a mouthful of blood spat out from my mouth. The people around were so frightened that they all exclaimed. Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu were even more terrified and took several steps back. As I was tottering, a pair of big hands suddenly and steadily caught me around the waist. 5. The next second, my whole body was lifted off the ground and held in a strong embrace. The boy's cold and hard jawline was tense, and his sideburns were sweaty from the sun due to his work, because he had rushed over from another field in big strides. His breathing was rapid. Sue, where do you feel uncomfortable? Zhao Chuanchuan was 17 years old this year, the same age as me. He was tall, straight, and strong, with wheat-colored skin and handsome and resolute features, but he was always taciturn, used to burying himself in work, and looked honest and dull. I looked at him, took a deep breath, and adjusted my complex emotions. I should deal with the current matter first, so I secretly pinched his elbow. This was the secret signal I used to play tricks when I was a child, pretending to be a ghost. Sure enough, he stared at me steadily for 2 seconds, his tense shoulders relaxed imperceptibly. But his hands didn't move at all, letting him hold me. I said weakly, I've been strong since I was a child and never had any illnesses, but since half a year ago, my body has gradually become unable to take it. Zhao Chuanchuan said that I've done too much work that isn't mine and overdrawn my body. Zhao Chuanchuan looked serious. Yes, Sue needs to rest. Zhao Chuanchuan had a great talent for medicine. There wasn't a single herb in the back mountain that he didn't recognize. He was the well-known little barefoot doctor in Kaitan village. Once he said this, its credibility was certain. Everyone started talking at once. What a pity. I watched Sue grow up. She was so healthy, now she's actually coughed up blood from overwork. While some people always say that they're not in good health, but actually they're lively and jumping around, maybe they're just faking it. I can't stand it anymore. Just because they're from the city, they think they're great and bully our rural girls like this. Everyone knows that Sue is the most enviable girl in our village. Her father is the brigade secretary, her mother is an old worker in the textile factory, and her betrothed can slaughter pigs, hunt, and treat diseases. The whole family dotes on her. Before the educated youths came to the countryside, I never saw Sue do any work. Some people should have some sense of shame. From now on, do your own work. You've enjoyed enough blessings. Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu were so ashamed that their faces turned red. Sue, it's not that your aunt is talking about you. You have to keep your eyes open when choosing a man. You mustn't want this kind of pretty boy, especially one with an unclear burden. The old are crafty. She saw it at a glance. I nodded. Cough, cough. Auntie is right. I mustn't. I was too stupid before. So from today on, you two educated youths, please earn your own work points. What happened today was just the first step in my break up with them. If I didn't make a preemptive move like this, with their style, they would definitely turn things around and play the victim to everyone, saying that I hated them because of unrequited love. At that time, others would only think it was my problem. Now it's different. After today, everyone will only remember how excessive they were. Sue dash. I didn't pay any more attention to the two people behind me who were almost drowned in saliva. Zhao Chuanchuan picked me up and left. We walked through the deserted bamboo forest until we got home. Immediately, I returned to normal and stopped pretending to be sick. I couldn't wait to get down from his arms. Just as I was about to complain to him, I saw the young man staring blankly at his empty arms, a bit at a loss. His eyelashes slowly drooped, hiding the imperceptible desolation. He said with difficulty, I offended you just now. I will explain it clearly to them. That's right. 17-year-old Zhao Tsue, in order to pursue her beloved, tried her best to draw a clear line from her childhood sweetheart, for fear of being misunderstood in the slightest, not to mention being carried in his arms like a princess in public. She would even avoid suspicion if they talked a few more words. But the one standing here now was Zhao Tsue, who had returned to the age of 17. I said righteously, explain what? Are you afraid of being misunderstood by someone about our relationship? As expected, a grown-up son has his own mind. The young man suddenly looked up, with an anxious expression. I'm not, Sue, I really don't. Not what? The young man wanted to say something but stopped, and his face was already blushing. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Even if Zhao Chuanchuan was slow-witted, he also realized that I was deliberately teasing him. His eyes became helpless and complex. Where was it broken just now? Ah, I reacted for a moment. You mean this? My gums were bleeding. Open your mouth and let me see. When we were young, Zhao Chuanchuan was my little dentist. I subconsciously complied, looking into his pitch-black pupils. I felt a bit uncomfortable and closed my mouth again. Be good, let me see if it's inflamed. If it develops into a toothworm, it will be bad. My gums tightened. That couldn't be. In my previous life, my teeth were very healthy. It wasn't until after I got married to Gu Chongqing that I got cavities. At that time, life was hard and tight. I wanted something sweet in my mouth. When I went to the supply and marketing cooperative, I couldn't bear to buy any snacks except the cheapest brown sugar. A pack could be eaten as a snack bit by bit for 2 or 3 months, over time. My teeth were also damaged. When the toothache flared up, I would roll on the ground in pain. When the pain subsided, I would stuff sugar into my mouth again. Such a cycle continued, and finally, when I was in my 60s, I didn't have many good teeth left. While I was reminiscing, rough fingers had already pressed on the corner of my mouth and pried it open with a gentle but firm force. His burning gaze observed inch by inch. Patiently and meticulously, it took so long that my mouth watered. And I subconsciously closed it, but unexpectedly, my soft tongue collided with his fingertips and quickly passed by. Both of us were stunned. His fingers froze in mid-air for a moment and then retracted unnaturally. "It's all okay, it's just a bit inflamed." Then he turned around, picked up the bamboo clips by the door, and walked outside. "What are you still going to the back mountain for? They're in very good health. There's no need to replenish them." The young man didn't look back, and the tips of his ears were red. "For you." 6. There were a lot of wild game in the back mountain of Kaitan village, but the forest was thick and steep, winding, and there were many snakes and insects, so the risk factor was also very high. Ordinary people only dared to pick wild vegetables and mushrooms on the periphery. Only those who were bold and capable had the opportunity to catch the good things inside. So if people wanted to eat meat, they usually had to buy it with money and meat tickets. In the past, when each household could generally only eat meat once a month, my family was in a relatively good condition and could eat meat once a week. Later, Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu came. The two of them had to eat fine grains and noodles every meal and required a balance of meat and vegetables. Although they looked thin, they ate a lot to satisfy them. The food in my family was consumed at an extremely fast rate. When the meat tickets were not enough, we relied on Zhao Chuanchuan to go to the back mountain to hunt wild game. My parents loved me, and Zhao Chuanchuan complied with everything I asked. Even in this era, they didn't say anything about supporting two people for nothing. They just kept working hard. So to be precise, our family of 4 was supporting Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu, but not anymore. At this time, Zhao Chuanchuan was clearing the way in front with a sickle, and I was following closely behind him. He was more silent than usual, with a bit of helplessness and rebuke. He thought it was dangerous and always didn't let me follow him into the mountain, but just now, he couldn't persuade me when I suddenly became rebellious. I couldn't remember exactly when Zhao Chuanchuan's leg was broken in my previous life. I only knew that on a rainy night, I had a high fever. He went up the mountain to look for herbs and disappeared for most of the night. When people found him again, he was covered in blood. In this life, no matter what, I couldn't let him have an accident. After Zhao Chuanchuan set the trap, all that was left to do was wait. He silently handed me some mulberries, a whole branch that he had broken off from somewhere. Each one was big and plump. I was stunned for a moment and took them. It was as if I had suddenly returned to the time before I met Gu Chongqing. At that time, I loved to stick to Zhao Chuanchuan. I would follow him wherever he went except when he went up the mountain. Afraid that I would be bored, he would always settle me down first, either by giving me something to eat or something to play with. As I ate the fruits in my hand, it was as if the estrangement between us in the past year and a half had never existed. It seemed that as long as I turned back, he was always there. The thin barrier between us melted silently as we got closer to each other. There was a rustling sound from the trap in the distance. The eyes of the young man beside me immediately became as sharp as a falcon's. The muscles in his tense arms were like a cheetah full of strength. In an instant, he rushed out. When he came back, there was a fat, dead pheasant in the bamboo clips in his hand. On the way down the mountain, Zhao Chuanchuan picked a lot of fresh mushrooms. The mountain road was dangerous and slippery after the rain. If Zhao Chuanchuan hadn't been quick-eyed and grabbed my arm in time, I would have almost stepped on air and rolled down the slope. He sighed and finally said in a low voice, "Suitsue, it's dangerous in the mountains. Don't follow me in next time." I retorted without thinking, "But it's even more dangerous for you to be alone. I want to be with you." He raised his eyelashes, and my face was reflected in his pitch-black eyes. After a moment, he returned to silence, but his steps became more stable and slower. It was 5 or 6 o'clock in the summer evening, and it wasn't time to finish work yet. Most people were still working in the fields. when we were almost home, the door of the neighboring house suddenly opened from the inside. A delicate and clever girl in a blue shirt walked out, with two shiny black braids. Her eyelids were one single fold and one double fold, making her look full of spirit. It was Chinlinglian. We used to be good sisters for more than 10 years, but our relationship broke down after Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu appeared. She couldn't stand me flattering Xia Wanyu and was also dissatisfied with my crush on Gu Chongqing. She had said many times, hating that I couldn't become a useful person, that I must have been bewitched, and advised me to stay away from these two people, but I didn't listen. And later she gradually ignored me. Until the night before my wedding in my previous life, she unexpectedly came to see me and gave me a huge sum of 5 yuan that she had saved for a long time as a dowry gift. On the one hand, she scolded me with red eyes for not knowing people well and not cherishing the person in front of me. On the other hand, she cried and hoped that I would be happy in the future. Only then did I know in that life that she liked Xia Chuanchuan. In retrospect, in fact, her liking had never been concealed. It was just that my attention was all on Gu Chongqing at that time, so I didn't notice. And now, this was the worst time in our relationship. We had been in a cold war for 3 months. She didn't give me even a sidelong glance. She walked straight up to Zhao Chuanchuan and handed him 2 white steamed buns wrapped in oiled paper, which were still steaming. Brother Xiachuan, you've worked hard today. My family just steamed pickled bean paste and meat buns. Eat 2 to replenish your body. In this era, white flour was a fine grain, and meat was even more precious. Zhao Chuanchuan took 2 steps back and said faintly, "No, thank you. Oh, I forgot. Brother Xiachuan, you don't like beans." As if it were expected, Chen Yinglian didn't react much to being rejected. Her gaze only lingered on me for a moment, as if she said casually, "I heard that someone coughed up blood from overwork in the fields today. No wonder. She's reluctant to eat her own family's food and gives it all to those 2 ungrateful wretches. She's even more generous than the Buddha who cut his own flesh to feed the eagle. It's your lucky day today. These 2 meat buns are a bargain for you." After saying that, without another word, she stuffed the oil paper package into my hand, then turned around and slammed the door shut. Zhao Chuanchuan beside me held his breath, waiting for my reaction. After all, in my previous life, except in front of those 2 people, I had a short temper. On ordinary days, I would explode at the slightest provocation. How could I tolerate such sarcasm? However, I naturally picked up the bun and took a bite. I commented as I walked, "It's a fool who doesn't take advantage of a good deal. Not to mention, it really smells good." 17-year-old Zhao Tsuetsue didn't understand what duplicity was, but the current Zhao Tsuetsue did. Chen Yinglian knew very well that Zhao Chuanchuan didn't like beans. Chen Yinglian also knew very well that Zhao Tsuetsue loved to eat beans. It was obvious who the buns were specially meant to replenish the body for. 7. In the past, to please Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu, I always cooked light meals, but in fact, my whole family loved spicy food. The excellent wild pheasant was just right for making stir-fried chicken with fresh peppers. I cooked, and Zhao Chuanchuan stoked the fire. I chopped the chicken into small pieces with a few swift cuts of the knife and divided it into 2 halves. I set one half aside for later use. I washed the other half, soaked it in salt water for 20 minutes to get rid of the fishy smell, and then drained it. I heated oil in a pot. When the oil was hot, I added chili peppers, scallions, ginger, and garlic and stir-fried them until fragrant. Then I poured in the chicken pieces and stir-fried them thoroughly. The aroma of the rapeseed oil and various spices was fully released under high heat and blended with the chicken. The rich smell of meat filled the air. Zhao Chuanchuan looked up. I met his surprised pupils and casually averted my gaze. After being a nanny for someone for decades, how could my cooking skills not improve by leaps and bounds? Some things couldn't be explained and could only be muddled through. I avoided his inquiring gaze, started another stove, and used the remaining half of the chicken to simmer a clear soup. At the same time, I added some mushrooms to enhance the freshness. Seeing this, Zhao Chuanchuan's hand holding the firewood paused slightly. He slowly retracted his gaze, lowered his head, and his back bent slightly. I was focused on cooking and didn't notice. I continued to stir-fry a dish of stir-fried greens with garlic and spicy tofu. The strong aroma gradually wafted in the yard, making people's appetites soar. My parents came back just at this time. My father had been helping the brigade drive a tractor during the day, and my mother had just gotten off work at the factory. My father sniffed and sighed. "I'm in for a treat again." My mother snorted. "What are you so happy about? Was it specially cooked for you?" you can only dip a little in the soup at most. If you take 2 more bites, your dear daughter will be worried that those 2 will starve and lose weight." I came out with another pot of stewed chicken soup just in time to hear this and shrank my head guiltily. It was impossible for my mother not to have any complaints about feeding 2 extra mouths for nothing. She didn't beat me to death purely because I was her own child. My mother pointed at the soup I was holding and said angrily, "Look, look, she's even made special food for those 2. Zhao Chuanchuan's face turned a little paler. I was just about to refute, "Speak of the devil." Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu, who had never worked in the fields as they did today, appeared at the gate of the small courtyard, sweating profusely from exhaustion. Hearing this, their wobbly steps became eager. Gu Chongqing even surprisingly called out to Xia Wanyu to come and help me carry the pot. "Wanyu, Suetsue has stewed chicken soup for us to drink. Drink your ass. Do you 2 even deserve it?" Without any outsiders around, I didn't bother to pretend anymore. I dodged, rolled my eyes, and walked past them towards the neighbor's house, leaving the 2 of them standing there in a daze. As for the other 3 people, a flash of surprise crossed Zhao Chuanchuan's eyes, and then he tightly suppressed the corners of his mouth that wanted to turn up. My parents had a look of disbelief on their faces. I stood at the door of Chen Yinglian's house. There were sounds of an argument coming from inside. "You little brat. Did you give the 2 missing meat buns to the neighbor next door?" "No. I ate them." "Humph, still being stubborn. Your younger brother saw it." "Do you think our family is rich? How can you be so pretentious? I've never seen them thinking of you when they have big fish and meat every day, yet you still have the nerve to act generous and meddle in other people's business." "Mom, stop talking. They're having chicken again today. If they could even give you a mouthful of soup, I'd call you Mom." The next second, I took a deep breath and shouted, "Yinglian, open the door, I'm here to bring you chicken soup." There was an eerie silence inside the door. When the door opened, Aunt Li looked unnatural. With a stiff smile, Chen Yinglian stood at the door and looked at me. We looked at each other, and finally, we both burst out laughing. She knew me, and I also knew her preferences very well. It was still not too late. As long as one lowered their head, there was no grudge between sisters. When I got home, those 2 were still standing at the gate of the yard as a punishment. The 3 people in my family naturally waited for me to start the meal. Seeing that I sat down on my own without inviting them as attentively as before, Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu's expressions were a bit unpleasant. Gu Chongqing glanced at the dining table and frowned. "Although the food you cooked today, Suetsue, doesn't suit our taste, we can still make do with it. Well, you can cook 4 eggs for us and serve them with 2 bowls of white rice." He was still acting so self-righteous and superior. "When are you going to pay the food expenses? You've been eating here for over a year and still want to keep freeloading." I remember someone once said that they would never take even the slightest advantage. It turns out it was all a lie. My goodness, I never thought that educated youth Gu would be such a person. I deliberately spoke in a strange tone. Gu Chongqing in his youth was the most high-minded and face-saving period of his life and couldn't stand the slightest provocation. He had always said that he paid me the food expenses, whether others believed it or not. At least he could save face for himself. He was taken aback and immediately became argumentative. "When did I say I wouldn't pay? It's just that you never mentioned it, and I didn't know how much to pay." Xia Wanyu beside him tugged at the corner of his clothes. I smiled. "I'll charge you 70 cents a day for the 2 of you, for the past year or so. Let's make it an even 300 yuan. Pay up." In 1976, the average monthly income in rural areas was only a few yuan, and it was all calculated according to work points. Only those formal workers in the county town could receive a salary and tickets every month. My mother, as an old worker, only earned 15 yuan a month now, not to mention Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu, who were almost unemployed vagrants. When they heard this figure, they blurted out in shock, "How much? You eat better than in a state-run restaurant every day. I'm actually charging you less. Now you think it's too expensive and can't afford it. Where were you in the morning?" Gu Chongqing's face turned red with anger. He wanted to argue, but the food was indeed beyond reproach and was well known throughout Kaitan village. In the end, he had to press his lips together and look at me disappointedly. He used his usual trump card, threatening me by depriving me of my special treatment. "Suetsue, I thought you were different from those rural girls. You're actually so mercenary, vulgar, and petty." Xia Wanyu didn't say anything, but her eyes expressed the same meaning. In my previous life, this trick always worked. Every time, I would fawn over them like a dog and coax them. I was so angry that I didn't want to see these 2 people anymore. I put down my chopsticks and looked around. A mother knows her daughter best. My mother casually picked up a broom from beside her and handed it to me. Without saying a word, I picked it up and started to drive them away. I'm telling you, I'm not only mercenary, but I'm also a shrew. Gu Chongqing protected Xiao Wanyu in his arms while dodging away in a sorry state. He still didn't forget to be stubborn and threaten me. Zhao Cui. You're really something. I won't look at you differently even if you beg me next time. We don't care about your food. As soon as he finished speaking, a clean chicken leg bone suddenly fell from the sky and happened to hit Gu Chongqing on the forehead, accompanied by the voice from the neighbor's house. What a shameless person. You're just a despicable wretch who only deserves to suck on chicken bones. After a chaotic scene of them losing their composure, the small courtyard became completely quiet. My father and mother looked at each other and said with relief, our daughter has finally grown up. That gum inflammation was really ingenious. A mouthful of blood also spat out the water in her head. Tsue's mom, it's a great day today. Let's have a couple of small glasses of wine. My father took out the old wine that was only brought out to entertain guests during the Chinese New Year. After pouring 2 glasses, he didn't stop but poured another glass and placed it in front of Zhao Chuanchuan. He smiled. Before Zhao Chuanchuan could react, my mother became anxious first. You old fool, what are you giving the child wine for? My father stretched out his hand to stop her and said meaningfully, our Xiaochuan also wants to drink today, right, Xiaochuan? The tips of Zhao Chuanchuan's ears suddenly turned red, but he nodded firmly. The moment he picked up the wine glass, our eyes met. His dark eyes were astonishingly bright, making my eyes wander. My mother looked at one and then the other and nodded repeatedly. Yes, it's hot. Drinking it will help you sleep better at night. 8. Perhaps the impression I left on them by throwing a tantrum was too deep, or maybe they were afraid that I would ask them for that huge sum of food expenses. After that day, they didn't dare to show up in front of me again, of course. Part of the reason was that I hardly went out after I didn't have to work in the fields. After being exposed to the sun for over a year, my originally fair and tender skin had become a bit rough, dry, and yellow. I was so anxious that I applied cucumbers as a facial mask every day. Which girl didn't love beauty? Fortunately, I had a complexion that was easy to turn white, so I managed to remedy it to some extent. Of course, it would be even better if I had some vanishing cream. Shanghai brand vanishing cream was a luxury item in this era. A small box cost a month's salary of an ordinary worker. Not only was it incredibly expensive, but it also required industrial coupons. Even if you had the money and the coupons, you weren't necessarily able to buy it, because it was a well-known hard-to-get item. So for now, I could only think about it. I couldn't fall asleep at night, so I simply put on my clothes and quietly went out. Little did I know that as soon as I left, the young man in the opposite room who was just about to go to sleep also opened his eyes. The educated youth dormitory was located at the head of the village, separated from the village by a reed marsh. The reeds were thick and lush, and it was said to be a good place for a tryst. In the dead of night, it was pitch black all around, and only the faint stars and moon above were still shining. In this environment, the sounds of a man and a woman being affectionate in the reed marsh were particularly clear. I recognized who it was and smiled. I had just come here on a whim, but I didn't expect to really catch them. Brother Chongqing, the food in the collective canteen is so awful. You can feel that I've lost weight recently. The dormitory is cramped and small, and it leaks. Some people even snore, and I can't sleep well. Hearing Xiao Wanyu's long string of grievances, Gu Chongqing sighed pitifully. Xiaoyu has suffered. Let me think of a way. Didn't you say before that there was an empty room in Zhao Cui's house? Brother Chongqing, go and coax her again. She's always listened to you the most. Humph, coax her. Just wait. With the way she's infatuated with me, within 2 days, she'll come begging us to move in like a lapdog. Okay, I believe in you, Brother Chongqing. Then, the sounds of pleasure became more intense. My hands itched again. Just as I was about to turn around to find some tools, I saw a thick and long rotten tree root being handed to me. Zhao Chuanchuan, who shouldn't have been there, touched the tip of his nose at this moment. He showed a smile as if he had done a good deed without leaving a name. I raised my eyebrows slightly and decisively took it. I bent down slightly, found the right moment, and suddenly struck with a stick. I knocked down a patch of reeds, completely covering their bodies and blocking their sight. Screams and cries of pain rang out. Who is it? Then they remembered that they were having an affair, so they gritted their teeth and didn't dare to make a sound. I took the opportunity to wave the stick again and hit them randomly, so fast that there were afterimages. all the grievances and indignation from my previous life welled up in my heart, making my eyes red. I simply threw away the stick and used my hands and feet. I slapped and kicked them. Regardless of whether they were male or female, I grabbed their hair and slapped their faces. However, Xia Wanyu was protected by Gu Chongqing, so she was beaten less for a while. I squinted my eyes and kicked her buttocks a few times. Finally, I stopped, panting. The two of them, with bruised faces, found a chance and immediately covered their faces and ran deep into the reed marsh, not daring to look back at all. Not until they disappeared completely did I turn around and ask, Zhao Xiaochuan, why are you here too? Accidentally, I just happened to be here. What a coincidence. I lifted my foot and was about to go back, but when I exerted force, my whole body went limp, especially my legs, and I could hardly stand up. I had used too much force just now, and my adrenaline was exhausted. I used to be like this when I got into fights as a child. I looked at Zhao Chuanchuan faintly. He tentatively said, how about I carry you? I smiled and said, well, I'd better accept your kind offer. The young man's back was broad and strong. I could feel his tense muscles even through his clothes. I lay on his back and admired the night sky above. Suddenly, a shooting star streaked across the distance. I subconsciously closed my eyes and made a wish. Taking this opportunity, I began to seriously think about how I should live my life after being reborn. I wanted to go to university. I wanted to make a lot of money. I hoped that all the people I cared about could live a good life. Finally, I cursed that Gu Chongqing and Xia Wanyu would have a bad life in this lifetime, at least not as good as mine. My thoughts wandered, and drowsiness gradually came over me. In a trance, I heard the young man suddenly ask, Tsue, what wish did you just make? Thinking of my rough face, I blurted out, to have a box of vanishing cream. If you tell your true wish, it won't come true. After a long time, so long that I fell asleep. The young man softly said, I see, Tsue. In the moonlight, the young man's every step was slow and steady, as if he was carrying the whole world on his back. 9. Tsue, do you know that those two ungrateful wretches fell down a few days ago, early in the morning, just after I finished my meal? Chen Yinglian, after cutting pigweed, came to my house excitedly to share the gossip with me. They fell really hard. They didn't go to work for several days. I heard from the people in the educated youth dormitory that they were howling in pain at night. Ha ha ha. I coughed and held back my laughter. It seems they didn't fall hard enough. Why didn't they fall to their deaths? Chen Yinglian gave me a thumbs up in admiration. Staring at me, she suddenly said, speaking of which, what kind of taste does Gu Chongqing have? I think you're much prettier than Xia Wanyu. She's only better in being fair and thin. Her facial features can't compare to yours at all. Is it my illusion? Tsue, you've become much fairer than before. As she spoke, she reached out and touched my face. And your skin has become tenderer too. How did you do it? Teach me quickly. I shook the small box in my hand uncertainly. Maybe it's because of this cream I applied. Vanishing cream. Tsue, have you made it big? I didn't buy it. What? Thinking of a possibility, Chen Yinglian's expression became a bit stiff. It can't be that Brother Xiaochuan bought it, right? Seeing me hesitate, the corners of her lips drooped slightly. She took a deep breath and looked up at me. Tsue, tell me the truth. Do you still only regard him as your brother now? The words were on the tip of my tongue, and the face of the young man flashed through my mind. After that night, Zhao Chuanchuan went to work in the fields before dawn in the morning. He hurriedly finished his meal at noon and then went to help the village slaughter pigs. In the afternoon, he walked dozens of miles to the city to treat patients for others and didn't come back until it was completely dark, except for not going into the mountains. He did all the jobs that could make money. His sudden enthusiasm scared the whole family, thinking that he had been stimulated by something outside. After all, our family had always followed the principle that as long as there was food to eat and people lived comfortably, there was no need for great ambitions. Until one day when I woke up and pushed open the door of my room, I found a box of vanishing cream wrapped in a cloth handkerchief lying quietly on the ground. Only then did I remember the casual words I had said. Later, my mother even teased my father at the dining table. In terms of spoiling our daughter, we'll soon have to take a back seat. Just a brother. I looked at her with a guilty look in my eyes. Sorry, Yinglian, I don't understand. I'm going to feed the pigs. The moment I opened my mouth, the girl's eyes turned red. She quickly interrupted me and turned to run outside. She almost bumped into Zhao Chuanchuan, who was walking in. She paused for a moment and then ran even faster with her head down. Zhao Chuanchuan came in at just the right time. I wasn't sure how much he had heard, and my face felt a bit hot. There was no sign of anything unusual in the young man's expression. "Suetsue, are you still going to the county town today? Let's go." I turned around and took a newly made set of men's clothes beside the sewing machine. "Put this on." It took him a while to react. "Did you make this, Suetsue?" I knew what he was shocked about. In this era, everyone could do a bit of needlework, but very few people could make clothes. The former were ordinary people, while the latter were called tailors. The threshold for being a tailor was very high. It required not only owning one of the 3 revolutions and 1 ring, a sewing machine, but also having superb craftsmanship accumulated over decades. In short, tailors were very popular and respected. Coincidentally, my family had an old sewing machine, which was my mother's betrothal gift. In my previous life, in order to support Gu Chongqing's studies, I learned everything that could make money, besides slaughtering pigs and carrying cement. I also worked as an apprentice for an old tailor, opened my own tailor shop, and finally worked in a garment factory until I retired. If it weren't for my old age later, with poor eyesight and trembling hands that couldn't thread a needle, I wouldn't have had to resort to picking up trash. Making 2 sets of clothes is an easy task for me now. As for the changes in me, they will get used to them in the future. I replied to Zhao Chuanchuan without batting an eyelid. Yeah, I made it. I only discovered my talent when I touched the sewing machine a few days ago. I was clearly being perfunctory, and seeing this, Zhao Chuanchuan didn't ask any more questions. While he was changing clothes, I also put on my new clothes. The ordinary fabric, after being cut and designed, not only fit extremely well but also looked very innovative, making the best use of my advantages and avoiding my disadvantages. My figure is plump and full, and I'm not suitable for wearing straight tube clothes. Slightly taking in the edges not only no longer makes me look fat but also makes me appear tall and slender. The young man looked broad-shouldered and narrow-waisted in his new clothes, and he was particularly elegant and tall. It was really eye-catching. While I was looking at him, he was also looking at me. It wasn't until both of us blushed that we looked away one after another and went out with a somewhat clumsy gait. It's 15 li from Kaitan village to the county town. Most people wait for the tractor at the entrance of the village to go to the city on errands and take a ride along the way, but the time for going back and forth like that is not convenient, so Zhao Chuanchuan borrowed a bicycle. The road was smooth, and the sun wasn't too hot. It was just a little past 9 o'clock when we arrived in the city. Zhao Chuanchuan came to the city this time to review a patient, but he said he was going door to door to sell herbal medicines. I knew that he had many prescriptions for treating stubborn and complicated diseases, which he had since my father brought him to Kaitan village 7 years ago. Even though my father was very tight-lipped, I knew that his background was definitely not as simple as what my father said, but everyone has their own secrets. Zhao Chuanchuan had something to do, and I also had my own things to be busy with. We agreed to meet at the state-run restaurant at 12 noon, 10. After we separated, I walked on the bustling street and carefully observed what everyone was wearing. It had been too long, and I couldn't remember clearly the popular clothes in the city in 1977. Now it seems that most of the clothes are blue and green. The most fashionable ones are Dacron, shirts, student uniforms, and khaki professional suits. In the crowd, I could often feel many eyes on me. There were also whispers of discussion. Look at what that female comrade is wearing. It's indescribably unique and beautiful. Why haven't I seen clothes of this style before? I haven't seen them sold in the department store either. Could they be foreign goods? But I haven't seen them in the friendship store either. It seems that with my current craftsmanship and aesthetics, making clothes for others is still in demand. My slightly worried heart settled down. Then I went to the Central Xinhua bookstore and had a look around. If I want to go to university, I have to take the college entrance examination. If I remember correctly, the college entrance examination will be restored at this time next year, and the exam will be held at the end of the year. If I want to catch up with the first batch of the college entrance examination, I only have less than a year and a half left. The top priority is to get the teaching materials. I walked around the bookstore but didn't find what I wanted. Then I slapped my head and remembered that they weren't allowed to be sold at this time. I sighed. I'd better leave this matter to my father to handle. He must have a way. I circled around and went to the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. On the high counter were the 4 traditional snacks: glutinous rice strips, egg cakes, walnut cookies, and snowflake cakes. But today, there was a new product on sale, Sakuma. This was also a big reason why there was a long queue outside. I planned to buy some and take them back for Inglian to try and coax her. When it was my turn, there was only the last portion of sakama left. I quickly handed the pastry tickets and money to the salesperson. At this time, a slender hand reached out from the side. I want the sakama. Following the sound, I saw that it was a girl wearing a blouse. She was wearing small leather shoes. And beside her stood a young man of about the same age wearing Dacron clothes. He was also wearing a Shanghai Plum Blossom brand watch on his wrist. The two of them obviously had an extraordinary status. Even though they cut in line, no one said anything. The salesperson decisively took her money and tickets and packed the sakama and handed it to her. The two of them didn't seem like they would eat such ordinary snacks. Sure enough, the girl bought the sakama but still stared at me. After looking at each other for 2 seconds, I decisively turned around and left. Most likely, they were here to pick a fight. My experiences in my previous life had long taught me to be flexible and able to yield when necessary, but the two people behind me panicked. Brother, why did she just leave like that? Normally, shouldn't she beg me to give it to her? And then I can logically state my conditions. How do I know? Hurry up and chase after her. The two of them quickly stepped forward and blocked my way. The girl frowned and looked puzzled. Hey, you're just not going to buy it anymore. You should at least say something to me. Maybe I'll give it to you if you say something. I stopped and looked at them curiously. The young man blushed for no apparent reason, and his voice also became much lower. My sister didn't mean any harm. She just wants to ask you where you had your clothes made. It was such a simple matter. But they had to go around in circles just because they couldn't put aside their airs as wealthy people. It didn't seem like they would be able to do business either. There might be a lot of troubles later, so I didn't blink an eye. An old tailor in the village made it, but he just passed away yesterday. Oh, the two of them changed their expressions at the same time, and their eyes looked a bit frightened. Well, I'm sorry. Here, this is for you. Sorry for the trouble. After saying that, they stuffed the sakama into my hand and didn't pester me anymore. Even when I talked about this matter with Zhao Chuanchuan while having a meal at the state-run restaurant, I still felt it was inexplicable and a bit funny, but soon we started talking about other things. Zhao Chuanchuan said that he earned 6 yuan today. I widened my eyes, I rubbed my hands, and before I could say anything, he put the money on the table and pushed it towards me. I don't need it. See if there's anything else you need to buy, Zhao Xiachuan, you're simply my lucky star. In the end, all the money was spent. We went back home with 3 jean of pork, a bundle of pencils and paper, and 10 bolts of cloth, and we were successfully scolded as prodigals. 11. In the evening, I went to the neighbor's house to find Inglian. She was chopping chicken feed. She looked up and saw me. Her eyes lit up, but then she quickly lowered her head. While working, she couldn't help but peek at what I was wearing. I put the things down. I moved closer to her and gently tugged at her sleeve. Inglian, I brought you some delicious sakama. She turned her head away, and her eyes turned red again. I asked softly, do you think my clothes look nice? She instinctively wanted to nod but held back. I made it myself. I also made a set for you. She suddenly turned her head, and tears started to fall. Woo-woo. Suetsue, why are you like this? It's already bad enough that you're good looking, and you're also kind, and on top of that, you're so amazing. Woo-woo-woo-woo. She leaned on my shoulder and cried for a while. After she calmed down, she wiped the corners of her eyes. She said with a relieved tone, I've thought it through. It's better for you two to have a good life than anything else. Anyway, he doesn't like me. It's my fault for looking like this, with my 2 eyes not symmetrical. Chen Inglian seemed very cheerful. But in fact, she was always a bit self-conscious because of her 1 single fold and 1 double fold eyes. At this time, no matter how much I comforted her, it would just become a trigger for her self-pity. Stop it, Chen Dapia Liang, Chen the beautiful, hurry up and try on the clothes to see if they fit. We're going to the primary school playground to watch a movie tonight. What? There's a movie tonight? She quickly got up and started to get ready. Watching a movie was a rare form of entertainment in this era. Chen Inglian was quickly coaxed. We didn't go late, but when we arrived, the playground was already packed with people. We finally found a space to sit down near the movie screen. The movie hadn't started yet. The children were playing with shadows in front of the projector, and the adults were chatting. As they chatted, their attention turned to us. Someone exclaimed, is that Tsuetsue? How did she suddenly become so beautiful and fashionable? Right, the one next to her is Inglian. What kind of clothes are they wearing? Why haven't we seen this style before? It doesn't seem like they bought them. It looks a bit like they made them themselves. Who has such good craftsmanship? For a moment, It was noisy around us, and everyone joined the discussion. Inglian stroked her braid and stood up straight confidently. Stop guessing. Suetsue made these herself. There was a sudden silence all around. 2 seconds later, it was like a pot had exploded. What? Suetsue made them? Inglian, don't be kidding. How could Suetsue know how to make clothes? A discordant voice suddenly interjected from behind. It was Xia Wanyu. She was covering her mouth and laughing. Next to her, as expected, was Gu Chongqing. There were no signs of their injuries on their faces, probably because they had healed. When I looked over, Gu Chongqing looked up, and a flash of amazement passed through his eyes, then a cold smile appeared on his lips. He glanced at Xia Wanyu beside him, and it was clearly written on his face. See, I told you she would come to me on her own initiative. Now she's using such a clumsy method to attract my attention. Xia Wanyu let out a sound. Suetsue, if you had come a little earlier, you could have sat next to brother Chongqing now. Chen Inglian rolled her eyes. Are you two some kind of hotcakes? Who wants to sit next to you? Suetsue made the clothes. Just because you're stupid doesn't mean you can't allow others to be smart. Xia Wanyu was taken aback. It's as if you saw her make them with your own eyes. Believe it or not, anyway, you won't have the chance to wear them. At this time, Gu Chongqing coughed. As if he were some important person. Stop arguing, Suetsue. Don't try to save face, blowing such a big cow just to attract my attention. It won't be good if you can't back it up later. I held back Chen Inglian, who wanted to rush up and beat them, and smiled. Whether I made the clothes or not, after the movie is over, everyone can go to my house and see for themselves, and then it will be clear. Before long, the movie started, but many people's attention was no longer on the movie. Some wanted to see the fun, some were curious, and some simply loved beauty. They couldn't wait for the movie to end immediately. To be honest, I should thank the two of them for being the atmosphere setters. They created such a big momentum for me all of a sudden. 2 hours passed quickly. I went out with 2 people, and when I got home, there was a long line of people following behind me. The inside and outside of the house were surrounded by curious onlookers, just as I was thinking about who to make a set of clothes for. The girl standing at the front had bright eyes. Suetsue, can you make a set for me? I'll go home and get the cloth for you later. Whatever style you make it into is fine with me. I remembered who she was. Li Xiaohua, the daughter of the pig butcher at the entrance of the village. Zhao Chuanchuan learned how to slaughter pigs from her father. I smiled and agreed. I took a bolt of cloth, sketched out the pattern with a few strokes, and then sat in front of the sewing machine and started threading the needle. Suetsue, don't you need to measure first? No need, my eyes are the ruler. With decades of experience, I can tell a person's figure just by taking a look. There was another gasp of astonishment in the crowd. Xia Wanyu muttered in a low voice. She's overdoing it, isn't she? Don't let it turn out that she doesn't even know how to operate the sewing machine later. Gu Chongqing didn't say anything, but his eyes were also full of doubt. My hands moved extremely fast, cutting the cloth, hemming, and piecing together. My eyes followed my hands. The discussion in the room gradually died down, and finally, only the sound of the sewing machine rolling remained. Until it was finished, I ironed it flat. Li Xiaohua couldn't wait to take it and went to the next room to try it on. When she lifted the curtain and walked in again, her face was filled with uncontrollable joy. Suetsue, you're amazing. 12. The crowd that had been suppressing their excitement for a long time exploded. This is so beautifully made. I also want a set to wear for blind dates. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that someone could work faster than the old tailor in the county town. Goodness, I never thought Suetsue had such great skills. Will it be very convenient for us to make clothes in the future? Xiaohua is really clever. Soon there will be so many people that we'll all have to queue up. Someone reacted and said eagerly, Suetsue, I'll go home now to get the cloth and money. Can you make a set for me too? Suetsue, I want one too. I want one. Me too, I said at first. Don't cut in line. After getting my promise, the people around dispersed in an instant. Only Xia Wanyu and Gu Chongqing were still there. Gu Chongqing looked at me with a complicated expression. I never thought you actually had this skill. I admit that you're indeed a bit different from other village girls now, but why didn't you say so earlier? Xia Wanyu beside him gently pushed his arm. Gu Chongqing changed his words. Suetsue, make a set for Wanyu too, and I'll forgive your rudeness last time and this time. Me. I stepped forward and grabbed his collar. At 1.7 meters, I was not much shorter than him. I could no longer hold back and started cursing. Seeing such arrogance really opens my eyes. What's our relationship that makes you so presumptuous, our educated youth so great, with your half-baked knowledge, what makes you so arrogant? Let me tell you, I've endured you for a long time. Pay attention to your attitude when you talk to me. You have lofty ambitions but a lowly status, relying on my previous liking for you. You think you can do whatever you want. That was me being blind before. Now you're not even worthy of carrying my shoes. Look at yourself in the mirror. Which part of you is better than Zhao Chuan? You just walk around with your head held high all day, being selfish, arrogant, and useless, a freeloading man who lives off others. You too, a scumbag and a slut, have been having an affair for a long time. You almost flattened the Reed Marsh, right, and you still treated me like a fool. Bah, pay back the money, 300 yuan, otherwise, I'll report you too. Just wait. After throwing away my restraint, I finally had a good scolding. The two of them were dumbfounded. You, Zhao Tsue, so it was you. Shock, fear, and anger made their faces turn all sorts of colors. They thought they had hidden it well, but they never expected that I knew everything. They never expected that I had caught them in the act and even beaten them up, but there was nothing they could do, now that their injuries had healed. There was no evidence. Instead, I had something on them, you know. At this time, it was illegal for unmarried men and women to have sex privately and they could be sentenced. A few days ago, the newspaper reported that a famous male movie star was sentenced to prison for having a one-night stand with a woman. Stop stuttering, pay back the money, I want it now. Gu Chongqing panicked. But I really don't have that much money. Tsue, do you really not care about our past feelings at all? If you don't have it, Xia Wanyu does. Xia Wanyu must have had a good life before coming to the countryside. Although her mother died early, her father was a junior high school teacher. It was just that later, there were problems in the family, so she chose to come to the countryside. In my previous life, before the college entrance examination was restored, she couldn't stand staying in the countryside and wanted to return to the city. But at that time, educated youths could only return to the city through methods such as job recruitment and examinations. Xia Wanyu spent 280 yuan to buy a temporary job in the city, while Gu Chongqing returned to the city to prepare for the college entrance examination after it was restored the following year and relied on me to support him. When she came to the countryside, she brought all her possessions. In the past year or so, you've been using mine and eating mine. Where did she need to spend any money? Xia Wanyu seemed to rely on Gu Chongqing for everything and was completely devoted to him. In fact, she was a refined egoist. She had been pushing Gu Chongqing to use his good looks to get what she wanted. She used herself to charm Gu Chongqing and used Gu Chongqing to charm me. She used everyone as stepping stones to pave the way for herself. In my previous life, that's how she went abroad to study. Hearing my words, a flash of guilt appeared in Xia Wanyu's eyes. A teenage girl's mindset hadn't been cultivated to the level it would be later. Her emotions could be seen through at a glance. Seeing this, what else didn't Gu Chongqing understand? He rubbed his forehead and his tone carried a bit of pleading. Wanyu, give it to her first. We can earn the money back later. Between going to jail and giving money, Xia Wanyu gritted her teeth and reluctantly took out a roll of big red bills from the inner pocket of her clothes and threw them in front of me. Now I don't have a single cent left. Are you satisfied? After throwing down these words, she turned around and ran away. Gu Chongqing glared at me and quickly chased after her. I counted the 3 big red bills and put them in my pocket. I felt an unprecedented sense of comfort. At this time, many girls came back with cloth in their arms. I collected the money and registered for each of them. Everyone line up. My parents had just come back from work and met a few old ladies at the door. They said enviously, "Oh, your family will enjoy a good life in the future. Tsue is so capable at such a young age, a tailor, how impressive." My father looked blank and just smiled. My mother subconsciously said, "That's for sure. My daughter has been smart since she was a child, she can do everything." After the people left, the two of them stared at the long queue in the yard. They asked in a low voice, "When did our daughter learn this skill?" "Do you know?" "I don't know." Unable to figure it out, they simply stopped thinking about it. My mother said, "It's good to know more things, why worry so much?" My father said, "That's true." After that day, more and more people from the surrounding villages came to me to make clothes. I couldn't make a fortune, but I had a steady stream of small earnings, and life became more and more comfortable. Sometimes when I was too busy, I would give some simple tasks to my mother and Inglian. However, my mother worked for free, while I would pay Inglian by the piece. At first, Etli had quite a few opinions about this. but when she saw Lian bringing money home, she stopped talking. Even when she saw me, she was very polite. 13. At this time, except for those who were teaching children to read and write, not many people were seriously studying across the country. Teaching materials were even less valuable than toilet paper. My father had to go to a lot of trouble to get 3 sets of teaching materials from the black market. When he learned that I proposed to start studying again, after confirming that I wasn't delirious from a fever, the whole family, along with my adopted elder sister Lian, sat down for a simple meeting. My father: do it secretly, don't get reported. My mother: learn more, anyway, it won't be wrong. Jiao Chuan Chuan, I'll listen to whatever Tsue says. Lian: I support it. Whatever Tsue does is right. Me: I didn't expect that I didn't need to persuade them at all. We had the teaching materials and the students, but we still lacked a teacher. The little schooling we had in the countryside before was at most equivalent to not having graduated from junior high school. It was extremely difficult to systematically learn junior and senior high school knowledge within a year and a half and get into a good university. I myself had a bit of a foundation. In my previous life, in order to get closer to Gu Chongqing, I attended night school for a few years and studied part-time to get an adult junior college degree. Although this degree was like a piece of waste paper in Gu Chongqing's eyes, it at least made me literate. It was Jiao Chuan Chuan and Lian who worried me. After thinking for several days, I finally dug out a person from my dusty memory, in my previous life, in order to help Gu Chongqing get a teaching position in the university. I tried to pull strings everywhere. Among them, there was a famous old professor in the finance department. Although he seemed cold on the surface, he had a warm heart. When he learned that I was from Kaitan village, he gave me a lot of help. Later, I found out that he had worked in Chishui village next door for several years. When paying respects to a master, one should show the proper attitude. Jiao Chuan Chuan carried 20 caddies of refined flour on his back. I carried 10 caddies of pork. And Lian brought 2 bolts of cloth and 2 caddies of white sugar. The 3 of us crossed the mountain and came to a thatched cottage along a small path. We searched for a long time but didn't see anyone. When we walked into the pigsty, we finally found the old man lying on the ground. Jiao Chuan Chuan quickly stepped forward. After confirming that the old man had fainted due to hypoglycemia, he carried the old man back into the house. After making a cup of sugar water and feeding it to him, the old man slowly woke up. Although he was called an old man, he was actually only in his 50s. It was just that the white hair at his temples made him look older. Seeing us, he asked calmly, "What are you looking for me for?" After learning our intention, he waved his hand, lay down on the wooden plank bed, and closed his eyes directly. "I can't teach, take your things back, I'm just a useless old man with no skills at all." I opened tentatively, "I'm a tailor and can make clothes for you for free." He didn't react. "I'm a very good cook and can bring you meals every day." He still didn't react. "There's a doctor in my family who can treat you for free." He remained unmoved, thinking of something. I took a deep breath and whispered in his ear, "Before long, the college entrance examination will be restored, and you'll be able to go home." He suddenly opened his eyes. I touched my nose and said, "I heard it, but it's very likely. How will we know if we don't try?" After a long while, he finally spoke, his tone complicated. "You little girl really dare to talk." Perhaps he had a glimmer of hope in his heart, or perhaps he softened again. The old man finally nodded in agreement. So we would set aside free time every day to come and study for 4 or 5 hours. Later, the empty mountain could often hear the old man's loud scolding. "I've explained it several times. Why still don't you understand? Don't even talk about getting into college. With your comprehension ability, it's even hard to feed pigs." A strict teacher produces outstanding students, and the teaching effect became increasingly remarkable. Although we focused on studying, we didn't neglect making money. Before we knew it, we had saved a lot in our small treasury. One evening when we came back, Jiao Chuan Chuan said that the patient he had been treating saw the clothes he was wearing and wanted to invite me to take her measurements and make some custom-made clothes for her. So the next day, I went to the city with Jiao Chuan Chuan. We walked into an old Soviet-style building. The interior decoration was brand new, and it was obvious that the owner was wealthy. The hostess, in her 20s, came gracefully wearing a unique long dress. Her facial features had an indescribable charm. A red mole between her eyebrows added to her charm. When I saw her face clearly, I couldn't control my excitement. Zhang Yakin, the most famous movie star in the 1970s and 1980s, I was once very obsessed with her movies. and my room was covered with her posters. It was said that she got married at a young age to a high-ranking official, although she was only slightly famous at this time. By the end of 1978, she would become famous all over the country with a peaking opera movie called Green Seedlings, and at the same time, set off a fashion craze across the country. Jean Yakin was very amiable. She smiled and waved to me. "Don't be polite, sit down and have a cup of tea, let's talk slowly." When she learned that I was 17 years old, not only did she not show any doubt about my ability, but she also praised me for having great talent at such a young age. She talked a lot about her ideas and requirements, hoping that I could make them according to her description. After she finished, she said a bit helplessly, "Look at me, I've talked so much again, maybe my ideas are too complicated and imaginative. I've looked for many tailors, but they're either too conservative or their thinking is rigid. In short, none of them can achieve the effect I want. It's okay, Tsue. You can give it a try first, just do it as you see fit, don't be pressured." Taking advantage of having lived one more life, I knew her preferences and the popular styles in the future very well. While Zhao Chuanchuan was giving her a follow-up examination, I picked up a pen and paper next to me and started drawing the design. When the examination was over, I had also finished drawing. She was stunned for a moment when she saw it, then stood up and stamped her feet in surprise. "Goodness, Tsue. This is exactly the effect I want. When can we start? I'll accept any price." "I've actually watched Sister Yakin's movies. I really like you. The price is the same as usual. As for the construction period, don't worry, I'll give Sister Yakin priority." I showed my sincerity. Sure enough, her eyes lit up even more. There was 2 parts less of politeness and 3 parts more of intimacy. Actually, I had my own selfish motives and plans. When I grow bigger in the future and have my own clothing brand, building a good relationship with her is equivalent to having the best promotional spokesperson. Even an ordinary piece of clothing can be made popular by her, and I won't have to worry about customers in the future. At this time, a young boy and girl walked in. The boy started acting spoiled as soon as he entered the door. "Auntie, is the little miracle doctor here? I haven't been feeling well recently. Let him take a look at me too." The girl was not to be outdone and said in a soft voice, "Auntie, is the little tailor here? I don't have any clothes to wear recently. Let her make a couple of sets for me too." Jean Yakin looked at them tenderly and said with a smile, "There they are." The 3 of us turned our heads and our eyes met. Seeing me, they said in unison, "It's you." Me, what a coincidence. They were the siblings who had snatched my Sakuma in the supply and marketing cooperative that day. Jean Yakin was confused and asked, "What, do you know each other, this time?" The 3 of us said in unison, "We don't." They were guilty about their impolite behavior and were afraid that I would tell on them. I was guilty about the lie I had casually told. Zhao Chuanchuan, however, saw it all clearly. As if to make up for it, the boy looked at me and then blushed silently. "Auntie, I was just shocked that this little tailor comrade is so good-looking." Jean Yakin, me, Zhao Chuanchuan didn't say anything. When he was writing the prescription for the boy after taking his pulse, he kept adding Rhizoma coptidus to it. 14 As the seasons change, with cold winters and hot summers passing by, autumn is for harvest and winter is for storage. In August 1977, on an ordinary day, the village broadcast station came the news that set the whole country ablaze with excitement. All workers, peasants, educated youth who went to the countryside and those who have returned to the cities, demobilized soldiers, and recent graduates who meet the requirements can apply for the examination. Candidates should have a high school graduate level of education or equivalent. Voluntary registration and unified examination are required. For a time, the news of the resumption of the college entrance examination became a hot topic of discussion across the country, and textbooks became something that people scrambled for. Some were delighted, while others were worried. 4 months of preparation time was simply not enough for many people who had neglected their studies. In order to consolidate our review and have a greater chance of success, we put everything aside in the last 4 months. The empty hills were filled with the figures of people eager for knowledge, ranging from teenagers to middle-aged and elderly people. They looked eagerly at the old man in the middle who was trying his best to give them lectures. That was the hope that rekindled their future. By the end of 1977, with the arrival of the first winter snow, 6 million candidates from all over the country successively entered the examination rooms. This largest-scale examination in world history lasted for more than a month before coming to an end. When filling out the college application, I applied for the design major. Since I came from an unorthodox background, I still needed some training from the formal system. Zhao Chuanchuan wanted to study medicine but was not sure whether to choose traditional Chinese medicine or Western medicine. I strongly encouraged him to study Western medicine and become a surgeon. Zhao Chuanchuan had a great talent for slaughtering pigs. He could wield the knife steadily, accurately, and fiercely. With just a touch, he could tell which bone it was. And even before the blood flowed out, he had already finished slaughtering a pig. He was definitely a good candidate for a surgeon. More importantly, several hospitals in the country had already established plastic surgery departments. If I remember correctly, within 5 years, cosmetic surgery would become popular in big cities, presenting a great business opportunity. Chen Yinglian resolutely decided to study finance from the very beginning, while waiting for the results. I continued to focus on my tailoring business. Zhao Chuanchuan continued to see patients as usual, and the way Chen Yinglian relieved her anxiety was to go to the village entrance to listen to gossip. Suizue, do you know that Gu Chongxing and Xia Wanyu didn't take this college entrance examination? I heard that they had a falling out 2 days before the exam. Xia Wanyu was caught red-handed by Gu Chongxing while dating the son of the steel factory director. The three of them had an argument on the spot. In a moment of carelessness, Gu Chongxing pushed Xia Wanyu down. Guess what? Then she kept shouting that her stomach hurt, and in the end, she actually had a miscarriage when she went to the hospital. Whose child was it? I don't know. I heard that they moved the next day. They probably didn't have the face to stay in the city anymore and may have gone to another city. It was really a pity. The gossip in the village updated quickly, and everyone was enthusiastically welcoming the new atmosphere. Soon, they forgot about these two people. In April 1978, the last admission notice was delivered to Aunt Li's house in Kaitan village. Chen Yinglian's hanging heart finally settled down. She hugged me tightly and wept with joy. Great, Suizue, I can finally go to Beijing with you guys. The day before we set off for Beijing, a letter sent from Beijing arrived at my house first. The envelope clearly stated the recipient's name, Jiang Xinian. Only then did I know that Zhao Chuanchuan had a name before he came to my house. He was a descendant of the imperial physicians in the palace, but he couldn't use that name. The general content of the letter was that Zhao Chuanchuan's grandfather was on the verge of death and hoped that Zhao Chuanchuan could go to Beijing overnight to recognize his ancestors. We hurriedly packed our bags and set off. However, the journey was long. After taking a train for 3 days and 3 nights, by the time we arrived, his grandfather had already been buried. The Jiang family had a large family business and many descendants, a mixed group of people, and many were eager to get a share of the pie after the old man passed away. Zhao Chuanchuan's parents died early, and no one genuinely welcomed him back, so we were sent away without even having a cup of tea. Fortunately, it wasn't a complete loss. They gave Zhao Chuanchuan an abandoned factory building in Beijing and 50,000 yuan, a little bit leaked from the fingers of the rich, was enough for us at the bottom to live on for a lifetime. Zhao Chuanchuan said that what was his was mine. It was really like having someone bring a pillow when you were sleepy. With the ready-made venue and funds, I brought my parents over. With all our efforts, we opened a garment factory and established our own clothing brand. In September 1978, Suizue Garment Factory was officially launched. Thanks to my relationship with the leading actress Zhang Yakan, Suizue Garment Factory became the clothing and prop supplier for the crew of the drama Green Seedlings. At the end of 1978, Green Seedlings became a huge hit. For a time, people all over the country were imitating the outfits of the main characters. Suizue brand clothing officially came into the view of the national public and made its debut. I helped him go from a down-and-out educated youth in the countryside who had lost both parents and had nothing to a decent and well-known old professor in a prestigious university today. It took the lead in producing batwing shirts, floral shirts, suits, sportswear, red skirts, jeans, flared pants, knitted sweaters, and other clothes. Suizue brand clothing became completely well-known across the country, and everyone regarded wearing Suizue brand clothes as a fashionable trend, from head to toe. For clothes of all sizes, Suizue brand covered everything, providing a complete range. In 1983, Beijing Suizue Garment Factory promoted and sold 300,000 yuan worth of clothing to the market on average every day, and at its peak, it reached 600,000 to 700,000 yuan. Following the trend of the times, after graduation, We went to Shanghai to continue our development. In 1986, Suizue Cosmetic and Plastic Surgery Hospital was officially opened. Artificial nasal bridges, artificial breasts, double-fold eyelids created through surgery, etc., cost more than 300 yuan, but there were still a continuous stream of customers every day. At the same time, in a certain operating room of the hospital, Ms. Chen Yinglian, the general manager, also got her other double-fold eyelid in her life. One night, Zhao Chuanchuan and I had just finished exercising. He suddenly buried his head on my shoulder and rubbed gently, pleading, "Suizue, when can we get married? Let me check." I took out the notebook where I recorded important matters. It said, in 1993, buy a house in Pudong, Shanghai. In 1995, buy a Sihiyuan in Beijing. In 2001, buy Matai stocks. In 2009, buy bitcoins. In 2010, invest in mobile phones. In 2019, invest in the internet. I smiled and replied to him, "Sorry. Your request has been politely rejected by your girlfriend. She plans to make money first." As soon as the words fell, in a dizzying moment, I was pressed underneath him again. The unrestrained strength showed the man's resentment. "Got it, Mr. Zhao."